Welcome back. CJ the Smart Guy with you. And today I have a magnificent guest. You might see her on social media. She might have a bow and arrow. She might have some other cool type of marketing going on. But she's a trademark attorney, as well as she's recently married, recently had her first kid. Man, Marina Banks McLaughlin. Man, appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So first off, how is it? You just had your first baby. How is that? How is being a mom, being a professional? How's that all going for you?
So it's definitely a process in itself. But with every new experience that we have in life, we pretty much take it as it comes and figure out how to re-navigate what it is that we want to do. So yes, incorporating a child is definitely different. However, what I'm doing is still the same, helping businesses, helping entrepreneurs get legally protected, still the same.
Yeah, because Serena Williams, I've always rooted for Serena Williams, and then out of nowhere she won while she was pregnant, and I was like, I never thought of that. I'm a man, so I don't ever think about actually performing while being pregnant. Mm-hmm. And then she had the baby, and she came back and was still doing pretty good. She had some issues, but she did some good. And then her kid was like, "Hey, I want you to stay at home," and she wound up retiring. So for me, I always wonder, being a woman as a professional, how does that, how do you balance those things? How are you learning to balance having both?
So actually, when I was pregnant, I didn't tell people I was pregnant until I entered third trimester.
Oh.
Reason being is that I didn't want anyone else to set standards of what pregnancy and being a business owner should look like. I wanted to be able to set those own standards for myself and figure out how to balance both. So while I was pregnant, I was still doing speaking engagements. I was still taking on clients. I'm still representing my clients as much as I possibly can. And when I got to third trimester and I wanted to kind of take some time to focus on preparing for my child, then I went ahead and announced that I was pregnant, and people had no idea. And to me, that's exactly the way that it should be for me. Yeah. Everyone's journey is going to be different. Like what you're saying, you can't even imagine what that was like for Serena Williams. Mm-hmm. She set the standard for that, and that's fine. I think that as women, we can set the standard for what our lives look like as being a business owner, a wife, a mother, and make sure that we're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. And, so you are a trademark and business attorney, correct?
Correct.
What does that exactly mean for the world?
Yeah. So what it means is that my whole mission is to help protect entrepreneurs and business owners through trademarks, through the proper formation filings like you help with as well with your clients, as well as through copyrights. And so my main clients are going to be creatives and business owners. So we're sitting right here and we're talking, pretty much in a podcast setup. Mm-hmm. At the end of this, we're going to have video recording. We're going to have audio recording, right? There's also a name of this actual show itself. Mm-hmm. And so my whole goal is to make sure that all of these items are properly protected. So who's going to own the audio recordings after this?
I am.
Okay. And then the video recordings, who has ownership of those? Because I'm shown in them. So what about, my persona that's showing up here?
Don't sue
me off. And then the name of it, right? Maybe you spent time thinking of this creative name. Someone else in DC tries to start a podcast or some sort of online show with the same name. Who is the owner of the name and what rights do you have? Yeah. And so my whole goal is to make sure that people have the proper rights to whatever they're doing creatively, and that for whatever business they're trying to grow or start up or expand, that they have the proper ownership rights, business setup, and that they can understand the legalities behind it. Oftentimes we know what we want to do. Mm-hmm. We know how to make it happen, but we don't necessarily know the legal side or we don't know the accounting side. And it's important to have professionals to help us with those items.
Man, I agree completely. So what exactly is a trademark, and then what exactly is a copyright? Because I think a lot of people confuse the two.
Yeah. So a trademark is going to be used to protect your business name, a logo, or a slogan. So if we think of Nike, for example, right? So Nike is a name, right, of their business. They have Nike trademark. When we see tennis shoes and they have a swoosh sign on the symbol, we don't even need to see the word Nike. Our mind automatically says that's a Nike. So the swoosh symbol is going to be their logo. They have that protected with a trademark. And then also when we see these commercials, usually it's black and white. Someone's running slowly, right? Some dramatic effect. And our mind automatically goes to this is a Nike commercial. And we see the wording, just do it. So just do it would be their slogan. So we have a business name. We have a logo and we have a slogan. That is what a trademark is meant to protect.
Okay.
It's meant to protect what the world sees and relates to the products or the services that you actually offer. When I see Nike, I don't think of a dress, right? Or I don't think of like legal services. I think of sportswear and athletics, things like that. And so it's trying to protect your name or your logo slogan as it relates to the products or services you offer. A copyright is meant to protect the creative nature of something. So when we talked about the audio recordings or video recordings, photographs, paintings, graphic designs, those are going to be protected by copyrights. Copyright starts with C and creative starts with C. So copyright is meant to protect the creative nature of items. And that could also go for like lyrics. And when you hear people, there was kind of in the news, I think that was a year ago when they were talking about Lil Wayne. He was going to have to go to prison and he sold like the masters to a bunch of his songs.
A lot.
And so when we talk about masters, that's actually like the copyright ownership of it. Who actually has ownership of this audio recording? So if they're going to use it in a movie, who's going to get paid or whose permission do they need?
And so how exactly do you own your masters? So, I've heard it a lot. I know Nipsey Hussle talked about it a lot. He was like, I own my masters. I've heard Slim Thug talk about it, heard Jay-Z talk about it. But how do you actually own your masters? Like if I'm a rapper and I create a song, do I automatically own them or do I have to buy them? Do I have to file a copyright? Like what's that process look like?
So that comes down to a contract, and every contract is going to be different.
Ain't
so
no
when
people don't read no contracts.
They don't. They don't read the contracts until it's too late. So with artists, typically they're not fronting the money for recording or for studio time. And if they do have someone write lyrics or have someone prepare the beat, right? All that has to be paid for. So if you are not paying for that up front, then you're probably signing away copyright ownership rights in order to make up for what you didn't pay for, right? There may be instances where you don't, right? You're just responsible for fully paying back whatever the person who paid for it. Typically, it's the recording studio. Or
the studio, the producer, it can be anybody, really. It could be the record label owner.
That's what I was thinking of, the record label owner. Yeah. So it's going to come down to what's in your contract. Now, when people pretty much, that's why you have people who start their own labels, because then they become the owner of everything. They're fronting the money, though, right, for everything to happen, but they're the owner of what's actually produced.
So with these contracts, right, so let's just say I was a rapper, mic check 1 2 1 2. But like say if I was a rapper and I got like a contract, but I don't know how to read all that because it's like lawyer language and like the average person is not going to understand that. Are there services where you can have like a lawyer who's trusted, who's going to actually break it down for you, like what it really is? And then is that lawyer going to cost so much that it's like, well, if I'm fronting $100,000 for this song, I don't want to pay my lawyer $30,000 just to interpret the contract. What are your suggestions for people who are trying to get into the business but can't read those contracts because of the language?
In the words of Cardi B, get a lawyer. So there's this video and Cardi B is on stage and she's telling people, get a lawyer. Like, don't try to do it yourself. Get a lawyer. The reason being is the same reason I would hire an accountant. I might think, $20,000 is a little steep to be paying somebody to review my taxes. Well, maybe when I got like what I'm actually supposed to pay, I would have had to pay $50,000, but my accountant was able to drop the number by like 30,000, right? I've already made back the investment that I've made into the professional and saved more. So instead of thinking about it as this is how much I have to pay for something, it's really an investment. It's an investment. And attorney services are tax deductible. Is that correct?
For sure. Without a doubt. Professional services is right there on your Schedule C. Definitely make sure that you write off all your CPA or attorney fees on your taxes for sure.
So those are reasons why you should, right? It's an investment in what you're trying to grow, what you're trying to build. So how serious do you want to be about this? Are you trying to stay small or are you trying to elevate to the level of Nike?
That part. Yeah. So we understand what a trademark is. We understand what a copyright is. Now, there's this discrepancy, right? So if you have like Dove soap, but then you have like Dove chocolate, like, isn't that like copyright infringement? Like, how can you have Dove soap and Dove chocolate? Just like you could have Marathon clothing, but you could also have like Marathon oil. Like, could you explain that?
Yeah, so those are business names. So they're going to be protected by a trademark, not a copyright. And so What CJ is referring to is the fact that when you are trademarking, you're trademarking specifically to the products or the services you offer, right? We said that when we think of Nike, we think of athletic products, not dresses or not legal services. So when you have a trademark, you have to narrow down the services or products that you offer, and that is how your trademark is going to be applied. So if someone is using the name Nike as it pertains to legal services, like the Nike brand can't necessarily say you can't use that name because their trademarks are for a specific product. So if you were to go look up their trademarks, they have to list the specific products that they're going to offer in relation to that name. Trademark law says your name is going to be protected as it pertains to the services or products listed on your trademark, as well as anything similar. So I couldn't start a sports like a watch club online, right? Maybe I was going to do like a YouTube series and call it Nike. And we were just going to review sports games, review athletes, and really just kind of talk all about sports itself. That is too close related to what Nike is known for. They're known for endorsing athletes. They're known for endorsing sporting events, as well as creating the products and goods that the athletes wear. So you have protection over the items listed on your trademark, as well as to those that are similar. Because when we think of Dove, Dove soap is a cosmetic product, Dove chocolate is an actual food item, those are unrelated. You know, when I'm going shopping for soap, I'm not looking for chocolate in between the deodorant and the lotion. So those industries are different enough as to where consumers wouldn't get confused. And so in that instance, you have two separate companies that own the trademark to the name Dove, but it applies to different products in different industries.
Got you. And would you recommend getting like a state trademark or like, a whole countrywide trademark? Because, money is a real thing. And, so, some people can't afford the countrywide. So what are your suggestions on that?
Yeah. So to me personally, I see no benefit in the state trademark because it doesn't have any standing or ground for you to file suit if someone is using the name in DC. If anything, you could possibly use it to prove how long you've been using the name, but in a federal court of law, it's not going to hold up as anything substantial. So ultimately, you really want to work towards having a federal trademark, and that's going to be filed with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The timeline is a lot lengthier than the state trademark and the pricing is more expensive. But when we're looking at the ultimate investment and having that ownership to say, hey, whether you're in DC or California and I'm in Texas, you still cannot use this name because I have a federal trademark, that's completely worth it. So I always recommend that people get the federal trademark over a state trademark.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's kind of like taxes, right? So you can, like every tax person, if you have your own taxes, you can do your own. Like you don't actually need to hire a CPA in order to do it. But if you want it done correctly, you probably should. So what is a typical countrywide trademark, like a national trademark cost? And then would it typically be to hire a lawyer in order to see that process through? Because you said it could be lengthy.
Yeah. So just to file the application, the filing fee itself is going to be between $250 to $350, depending on how much you're going to put on the trademark. So the pricing raises for every different industry that you're going to want this name applied to, right? So we talked about the fact that you have to specifically state, what goods or what services you're going to offer. The more products or the more services you're listing, the higher your fee is going to be. So the base rate is $250 to $350. That's just for it's called a class. A class pretty much describes the services or products you offer. As the more you start to expand, you have to pay an additional fee, additional $250 or $350 for each, class that you want your mark applied to. So what that means is that maybe I want to trademark a name, for a podcast, but I also want to use that name for clothing. Those are two separate classes. I need to pay, $250 for one class and $250 for the second class. That's if you're going to do it yourself. Now, if you're going to hire an attorney, you still have to pay for those classes, but now you're paying for legal services in addition to that. Most trademark and business attorneys charge flat rate instead of hourly. And trust me, this is a lot better because if I'm working on a trademark for you for a year and a half, you don't want to have to pay me hourly because it's going to add up. So most of them do flat rate, and the pricing for attorneys to do this usually starts at about, I'd say about $1,100 or $1,200 for attorneys to work on your trademark for you.
Got you. Yeah, because CJ the Smart Guy, I got my clothing line, I got my communications, which is the podcast, and I got my consulting, which is like my tax. So I'm in all types of classes, and y'all can't touch CJ the Smart Guy because that's trademark for sure. Yeah. So okay. So my next question is: there's a whole new group of people who are trying to get into this industry, like the Web3, cryptocurrency, blockchain industry, and there's new domains. So we're used to having like, banksolutions.com, but now we have like banksolutions.btc or .eth, because now we have wallets that we can receive cryptocurrency through the actual domains themselves. Would a trademark cover that? Like if somebody tries to take CJtheSmartGuy.btc and I was just like, I want that, like I have a trademark, what would be the next step if somebody were to try to take that?
So that's a great question. And the way that I have to explain this is because a lot of the people who I work with who are like heavy into Web3 are like, well, there's no laws that are really surrounding this right now. We're kind of just working out there. Well, when it comes down to copyright ownership and trademark ownership, we're still going to these traditional laws that are here. Mm-hmm. So if I have trademarked or you've trademarked CJ the Smart Guy, no matter what ending you put on that, if you're using that main name for the services or the products that your name is trademarked for, I can send you a cease and desist letter and tell you can't use that. Now, what people will do is they'll hold on to the name. They won't use that website for anything. Mm-hmm. They'll try to charge you $3,000, $5,000 if you want to buy back this domain name. No, it happens. I'm completely serious.
That sounds like blackmail.
Yeah. So they'll do that. So for me personally, I'll give this example. When I started my business name is Bank Solutions, right? Mm-hmm. It's a PLLC, a professional limited liability company. I tried to get the domain for just Bank Solutions, and they wanted me to pay like $3,000. Someone who has purchased this domain name doesn't use it for anything. Mm-hmm. They're just holding on to it to try to sell it off to someone who creates a business with this name.
It's a big business.
So I just went ahead and made my website Bank Solutions PLLC. And I didn't just buy .com. CJ's saying there's all these other domain endings. Buy them up.
Yeah.
.org, .net, .law, .com. Buy every domain because it's going to be cheaper that way. You may pay $10 or $20 a year, but as long as you have ownership of it, no one else can try to buy it and use it for any purpose you don't want them to, or use it and then try to sell it back to you for some excessive amount of money.
Yeah, I use mostly like unstoppable domains because then you can buy a lot of these domains for like $20, $40 or something like that. And then you never have to pay a recurring fee because you actually own that domain. Like you own a piece of property in the blockchain. And so like you can always get the cryptocurrency sent directly to your wallet. And you don't have to use a Cash App where you put the $ in front, because if you try to send something from like a PayPal or Venmo or just another wallet in general, and you try to send it to Cash App, they're not going to cross platforms. But now if you have like a .eth or .btc or .crypto or, whichever those domains are, now you can get it from all the different platforms. So it integrates everything. So I use unstoppable domains. I like that a lot better than like ENS. ENS is just for Ethereum, but then they make you pay every single year. And I feel like that's borrowing it. Like I like to own everything.
Yeah. So look into that. But, sometimes people start a business and they've owned the business for quite some time and never considered the domain name. And now they're realizing like, oh, if I actually want the domain for my business, and you really want to keep things the same across the line because people remember, right? When you're talking about marketing and keeping things consistent, people need that name to stay consistent to properly find all of your platforms. You don't want to have a website name that's completely different than what people know your business by.
Yeah. So, okay. So say somebody did try to take CJtheSmartGuy.btc and they're like, you got to pay me $3,000 because I'm not paying that. But like, if we send them a cease and desist letter, do I have to pay them for it?
So here's the thing. They hold on to it and keep it a blank page. So have you ever been to a website and it was just like, oh, if you want to purchase this, like it's just a blank page.
Wow.
It's not being used for the services that your name is protected for. So they can do that. They can just hold it and not use it for the services or products that your name is trademarked for and still just hold it. So we can't send them a cease and desist until they are using it for the reason, like the products or the services that your name is protected in reference to.
Man, look, we're not going to talk about how we're going to avoid that blackmail. Just know that I know, and ain't nobody else going to know. So, where are you originally from?
So I'm originally from Pasadena, California.
West Side. Okay. And what brought you to Houston, Texas?
Yeah, so I actually came to Houston to attend law school, and then I just stayed after. There was a lot of job opportunities, a lot of young professionals who are marketing and trying to grow themselves, and then it was just a cheaper cost of living than trying to go back to California.
Man, straight up, there's no state income taxes here. Gas is typically about half of what it is in California. The houses, you can get a whole lot more for a whole lot less. Man, I mean...
The Southern men.
I mean, you see, look, y'all. She got married out here. I will say that in Texas, in the South in general, the black love is a whole lot different than it is in California. I think it has to do with the cost of living, to be honest with you. Because I know here in Houston, the men are a lot more gentlemanlike. They'll open up the doors. They'll pay for your food. They don't mind doing all those things. But in California, like, we struggling so much. It's like, nah, I ain't paying for your food. Like, no, you got to pay for your own. Just because, I mean, if you go to the club, it's $50 to get in. The drink is $25 and is watered down. Here in Houston, you could $10 drink and $20 food and you good.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I have a friend who actually moved to Los Angeles. She's from Louisiana, but spent a lot of time in Houston. Mm-hmm. And she was saying that a lot of people who she has come in contact with who are from the South who moved to LA are saying that one thing they miss is the sense of community that they felt in the South. Yeah. And I think in LA, like, everyone is just like, I'm trying to get it for myself. Like what you said, there's not necessarily that sense of community that you feel when you're in the South. And that was one of the reasons I stayed as well. Like, when you talk about marketing and networking and growing yourself, if you have a strong community and people are willing to connect you with others, that helps a lot.
Yeah, I feel like Leimert Park was the only place where it was like really Black power united, and pretty much anywhere I saw in California. Like, there's other areas where we come together and we help each out here and there. But like, as a whole community, I feel like Leimert Park was the only one that was just like anything resemblance of a Houston or an Atlanta, or, just in general. In the South is nice. And we don't just have like one block. Like, there's like multiple areas we can go. Like, Texas Southern University. Look, we both went to Texas Southern. Texas Southern is like right by Third Ward. It's in Third Ward. And then we have like a whole bunch of restaurants and different Black-owned businesses where we can all shop and spend our money, because I feel like group economics is really important. You want to keep the dollar going within your community as much as possible so that, we can sustain our lifestyles without having to depend and ask for help from the government or from an outside source.
Yeah. And going to law school at Texas Southern, that's the only HBCU law school in the state of Texas. So when I was applying for internships or looking for mentors in the area, there were a lot more African-American attorneys who just wanted to help once they saw my resume that I was a Texas Southern student, because they knew that it was going to be a little more difficult and they wanted to make sure that I had opportunities to help propel my career in the future.
Yeah. Shout outs to Megan Stallion also. She graduated from TSU. Michael Strahan, TSU. We got Marina, McLaughlin. We got Charles Kelly, CJtheSmartGuy. Look, Texas Southern University. Big shout outs to them in Third Ward, Houston, Texas. I had never actually heard of Texas Southern until they gave me a full ride scholarship in the mail. And I was like, oh, okay, we'll check it out. And I was like, I was so ignorant coming from California. I didn't realize there was more than 2 like Black colleges. Like, the first introduction to a Black college was like Stomp the Yard and Drumline. And I was like, oh, Stomp the Yard. And like, that was literally about to be my freshman year. It was that year. And I watched that movie and I felt the exact same way. I was like, what is this? Like, lines? Like, Black people go to college? Because in my mind, like UCLA, USC, it costs too much. Like, I'm not about to do that. Or you can go to a local community college, but I never thought that this many Black people could go to a university and then thrive as much as we have without having to, assimilate to other cultures. We have it our own here. Like, we own it. I love that.
So, funny story. The reason that I decided to attend an HBCU was because of Nunu on ATL. And she wanted to go to Spelman. So I was like, oh, Nunu's going to Spelman. I want to go to Spelman. And I visited in high school and I was like, maybe Spelman is not for me, but I definitely want to go to HBCU. So I only applied to HBCUs when it came time for me to apply. But a movie was what pretty much gave me my first introduction. And then I started doing research on my own. And I was like, okay, this is definitely the route I want to take, and I needed to find a school that fit me. So
yeah. Art can imitate life, and then life can then imitate the art. So we got to make sure that we're producing as much content as possible. I know back in the 90s and, even the early 2000s, like they used to have like a bunch of HBCU, hoodies, T-shirts. You can check it like on Martin or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Living Single.
And I just feel like we need to bring a lot of that stuff back. Shout out to Deion Sanders, though. He went from the NFL and then came back to Jackson to teach, the college kids. I think HBCUs are really, really important. I think it's undervalued. And I think that if you are a Black American in this country and you're trying to get educated, you should seriously look at HBCUs. Figure out which one is best for you. Figure out, what state you want to be in. But I definitely feel like you should look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about your marketing strategies, right? Because, typically when you talk to lawyers or like even CPAs, they're used to us being in like these suit, ties, cut. You got like braids, I got locks, like. But your social media, I feel as though, represents what the future will hold. So can you talk a little bit about more your tips, your strategies, and why you chose to use your types of marketing? Because you don't typically see lawyers with bow and arrows about to shoot things. So, talk about that.
Yeah. So when I attended undergrad, I attended Dillard University in New Orleans, Louisiana. As I said, I'm from Southern California. So going to HBCU was a little bit of a culture shock for me. When you go to HBCU, there are tons of people who are smart, right? Who look like you. And you're all put in one environment to learn and to thrive. And one thing that I had to learn about myself is that you may have the knowledge that it takes to get to the next level, but you don't have the cultural awareness or ability to connect with the community that you really want to help. And so when I obtained this law degree, I had two decisions, right? Mm-hmm. I can absolutely take a corporate job and I can separate myself from the community that pretty much looks like what I grew up in and maybe just do community service in there from time to time. Or I can actually make it my goal to service this community. And so in doing that, I can't just read off the law says this, right? The law says that you need to wear a seatbelt whenever you drive a car, so do it. And if you get caught, then call me not wearing a seatbelt. Mm. That doesn't connect to anybody, right? And so I had to find ways to really break down the law in an entertaining way that I can connect with people who actually need the services that they didn't know they needed. The majority of my clients had no idea that an attorney actually offered the services that I offered. They just knew that, oh, okay, well, I heard from this person who owns a business that maybe I actually need to get an LLC. And then I saw online something about someone talking about a trademark. I had no idea I needed it. I came across your page and learned that I can actually get an attorney to do it for me. And so finding creative ways to make the community that looks like me or other minority communities more knowledgeable about legal concepts that can help their business and grow their business, that is what I'm passionate about. So when CJ is talking about like a bow and arrow, right? That's just something that can grab your attention. But once I have reeled in your attention, I can now teach you.
Yeah. I think that's huge. And also, yeah, you're right. Because when it comes to attorneys, most of the time we just think, oh, man, you need a lawyer, meaning you in trouble. Or you need a lawyer because you're about to sue somebody. Like typically that's all people think about lawyers is, man, I don't want to go to jail, so I got to hire a lawyer. Or, man, that person messed up. I'm going to sue them because they hit me. I need to go to ijustgothit.com or something like that. So what other types of lawyers are there? Like you got trademark lawyers, you got civil, you got criminal, like what are all the different types of lawyers?
Yeah. So we were talking about rappers, right? We're talking about people who are on podcasts, right? You can have an entertainment attorney. We were talking about people who are in the web. Now, people who are in Web3, there's pretty much like a whole new group of attorneys coming in who just specialize in this area. I think they kind of call themselves like cryptocurrency attorneys or things like that. They may call themselves Web3 attorneys, but there's not a lot of attorneys who specialize in it, and it's a growing, it's just starting up, right? You also have cybersecurity attorneys who their whole goal is to pretty much help scope the laws that applies to cybersecurity and help enforce those laws. When he talked about a civil attorney, that's pretty much anything where you're not in trouble, but you want to sue somebody. So maybe there was a breach of contract, like you feel like you hired somebody to do this, you pay them, and they didn't fulfill the duties they said they were going to do, then you can sue them. That's considered a civil suit. suit, or you got into a car accident, right? Yeah. And a drunk driver hit you or something like that, and you want to sue, that's civil, right? So you're not necessarily in trouble with the law, but there are grounds for you to actually sue and recover. Whereas criminal law, you got in trouble, right? And you need somebody to defend you because you did something you weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
Family, maybe you need help with custody or you need a divorce, right? You need a prenuptial agreement because you're about to get married and you want to hold on to some assets. That's a family law attorney. Someone dies, right? We hear about all these celebrities who die and it takes 1.5 years, 2 years to figure out how to disperse their estate. You have your wills, trusts, and estates attorneys who actually handle these items for you so that it's already handled. When you pass away, it's no arguing over who's going to get Big Mama's TV because it's already set in stone, right? Yeah. So there are many types of attorneys, and some of them we don't necessarily have like a title for that category, but an attorney can help you decipher what type of law this is, labor and employment. Maybe you feel like you're being discriminated against, something like that.
Yeah. Now, is there a place that we can go to? So, for instance, like me being an accountant, I get a whole bunch of people who are like, do you do real estate? I focus mostly on cryptocurrency taxes and consultation. I don't really specialize in real estate. So they ask me, so I then can refer them to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Is there like a database of, maybe Black attorneys that, show all these different specializations where we can just go to one spot and be like, okay, yes, I have my construction attorney, I have my civil attorney, I have my criminal. Like, is there a spot that they can go to find a Black attorney?
So honestly, that I know of, there isn't just a website to find a Black attorney. What I do if you are in the Houston area is I always refer people to blackbookhouston.com because there's so many attorneys listed on there who are in different fields. And then also if like people reach out to me and they're like, hey, do you have a referral for a personal injury attorney? I was just in a car accident or I need a criminal defense attorney. Most of us are going to know somebody because we went to school with a lot of people who look like us who practice law. So I can always refer you. But as far as just one website where I can find a Black attorney, I don't personally know of one. There may be one out there.
Got you. Okay. So you are an attorney. You're young. You just had your first kid, recently married, got your own business. If you were to talk to any girls like that are growing up, maybe they're in elementary school, junior high, or high school, what would you tell them? And, about the journey to get here, the pros, the cons, the downfalls, the things to take advantage of. What would you tell them?
Where you are right now does not determine where you're going in the future. Funny thing is, when I was in law school, I took an Uber. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember where I was going. And sometimes your drivers talk to you and sometimes they don't. Well, my driver was talking to me and he was just wondering where I was going and, what I'm into. And I was telling him I'm in law school. And he was like, oh, well, one day I actually want to, go to law school. And people say stuff like this. You don't think anything of it. And just like, okay, well, you want to do it. You go ahead and do it. Well, fast forward to when I graduated from law school, they were bringing in the next class of incoming first year students. Mm-hmm. And I saw this guy. I said, hey, do you just drive for Uber? He said, yeah. I said, I was in your Uber ride one time and you told me that you wanted to attend law school. And I said, congratulations. Like, I'm so happy you made it. But I say that to say that your current circumstance does not determine where you're going to be in the future. He was driving literally for Uber and he was like, this is just something I want to do. When you say that you want to do things, you can make them happen. They don't just have to be words that are coming out of your mouth or thoughts that are coming into your mind. You can make them happen. You may not know anybody personally who has made it happen, but guess what you have at your fingertips? Social media. Man. You can connect with people who look like you, who are in places where you want to be. And now what I did is I just shot a whole bunch of shots. Mm-hmm. Some of them hit and a lot of them missed, and that's okay. For me, the tool that I used was LinkedIn. I reached out to so many people while I was in undergrad or even while I was in high school, and I just wanted to talk to them or ask them questions about their journey. You can learn so much from other people's journey that can help you to say, okay, well, these are steps that I should not take, right, in order to be successful, or these are steps that I can take. Regardless of whether it's positive or negative, you can learn something from it and figure out how to maneuver to the next stage. And the second thing is prayer, being really prayerful about what God has in store for you and getting you to that next level. The Bible says, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe you have received it and it will be yours. So if I'm saying as a young child, and I was told as a young child I was going to be an attorney. So I always said as I was younger, I'm going to be a lawyer. when I started going through the process, it was difficult. And I lost hope at certain times. And I thought that maybe this wasn't the route that I was going to take. But everything that I did kept leading back to going to law school and becoming an attorney. So whatever you ask for in prayer, believe you have received it. Say that you are an attorney. I'm going to be an attorney. That is what I'm going to do. You speak that over your life. So there is power, right? Other people may call them affirmations, but I'm going to say ask for it in prayer and believe it's yours. Speak those affirmations over your life, and then reach out to people who have been through similar steps to get to where you're trying to go, and talk to them. Everybody may not respond to the DM, but some people will, right? I've absolutely responded to people who've reached out to me who are saying, hey, I'm in high school and I needed to interview someone to ask them questions because this is where I want to be. Reach out. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, that makes you feel cool, huh? When a high school kid's like, hey, I need somebody to interview, and you're like, oh, I'm a professional now. Like, I know that makes you feel cool.
Right. Am I a professional? Am I an adult?
Yeah. And you mentioned social media, and man, I think your form, like your brand in social media, is perfect for this new generation because we're consuming content differently now. So like a lot of times when people look at advertisements on a TV, well, those ads were forced on us, meaning we were forced to watch them if we were, watching the NFL or the NBA. Like you couldn't just like skip the ad. And so now that we're consuming content on like YouTube, we can literally hit skip this ad. And if you're using like the Brave browser, which is a browser that blocks out all ads in general, we don't even have to watch ads anymore. And so I feel as though in order to, push your business, to push your brand, we have to figure out ways that people actually want to consume it, right? Because they can hit that skip. Now, instead of them hitting that skip, we're like, ooh, why she got a bow and arrow? Oh, what is this about? Like, oh, like, and so they're interested, and then they're learning in the process.
Right.
And so I think that the way that people are consuming content is changing, and I feel like you're on the forefront of that. So I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of you for, creating your family. I'm proud of you for graduating from the Texas Southern University and, just doing everything the correct way. So I appreciate you for coming on. And yeah, if you need anything, just hit me up. Y'all, CJ the Smart Guy, Bank Solutions CEO, Marina, Banks, McLaughlin. We're out.
Thank you.